Welcome to Frank Buckley Interviews. Tonight, as we head into another NFL football season, we have the NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti.
Frank Buckley Interviews starts now.
At 26, Taylor Bisciotti is the youngest person to ever be hired for an on-air position at the NFL Network. Taylor also happens to be the niece of Steve Bisciotti, the majority owner of an NFL team, the Baltimore Ravens. And that has made her self-conscious at times.
I used to worry, like, oh, I wonder if they think that I just got this because of that. But, you know, a connection can always get you in the door. And I think that it's like your work ethic, and that's what's going to make you, like, keep the job and stay with it.
The NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti uncovering the NFL and her insights into our local teams, the Rams and the Chargers, when we come back. Taylor, welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So you're the youngest on-air hire ever for the NFL Network.
I am.
How did that come about?
So I graduated, I was an accounting major. So let's start from the beginning. I did not plan on going into this. I was in my last year of accounting, and you kind of have like your life mapped out for you when you do that. Like, you know, you're going to go get your MACC, then you're going to go with one of the big firms, and right. I couldn't really see myself doing that. So I decided to switch over from accounting my last year, and I went into digital broadcast journalism, and I love it. I mean, it's something that I just think it's so fun to tell people's stories and adversity and kind of like be the spokesperson, the eyes and ears on the field. And so I felt like that was something that I really loved doing.
Yeah.
And then after school, I was a one-man band. Yes, that was really fun. I'm telling you what, I've got a skill for carrying camera equipment, and then editing, not really. I was a terrible editor.
And where'd you do that?
I did that for Sporting News. I did a couple of things for Sporting News, Bleacher Report. And I worked for SEC Network for a little bit and didn't have like a full-time job. And that, you know, it's hard. You're like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right choice of like kind of going this path? And then I got a job at NFL Network. So I immediately moved out to Los Angeles and have been here for 3 years now.
I'm Taylor Bisciotti with the latest news from around the NFL. The crime of the century has apparently been solved. An NFL spokesman releasing a statement saying Tom Brady's Super Bowl 51 jersey has been recovered.
And I ask you that because I think people hear, oh, you know, young woman who got a job at the NFL Network at a young age. It's because of her family connections.
Mm-hmm.
Your uncle is the majority owner of the Baltimore Ravens, and you've put in the work.
Yeah.
You've paid your dues, and that's how you got the job. And I wonder, when people have that assumption about you, you must feel it, or some people must
Absolutely.
even ask you.
No, it used to really bother me at first, and it would get under my skin a lot, and I would kind of let it hold me back a little bit, and maybe not. I mean, I was a little bit hesitant to work for NFL Network, especially just because it is primarily covering the NFL. And although it is my favorite sport, obviously, it was always like in the back of my head. And I used to worry, like, oh, I wonder if they think that I just got this because of that. But, you know, a connection can always get you in the door. And I think that it's like your work ethic, and that's what's going to make you like keep the job and stay with it.
Yeah.
And I think that my role there has grown. And so I feel like that's kind of helped in terms of making me feel like I do belong, and I've kind of earned it on my own merit. So no, it's definitely always something that to say that it doesn't bother me would be a lie. But I think that it's just an obstacle that you kind of have to overcome. And if you know that you're doing what you love and you're working as hard as you can be, then you just can't really let it hold you back.
And the performance tells, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're doing the job, you're getting it done, and people like what you're doing, so that's what counts.
Some people. I think my grandmother does. At least she does.
Well, let me ask you though, if your uncle ends up in the news, how do you cover that? Do you recuse yourself? Is that a discussion you had to have with the folks at the NFL Network?
Yeah. It wasn't really necessarily a discussion. I think it was just kind of understood that, you know, like once you do start working there, you can't really, obviously you can have like teams that you root for, and everybody there has like their favorite team.
Yeah.
But you can't really let it affect your reporting. So like if something came out, you know, like recently, a couple months ago before the season or before off season started, it was, you know, the Ravens had gotten in trouble they basically did too much in practice. Like it was supposed to be like a unpadded, like not physical contact practice, and they had cross that line because they had it on camera or whatever. So they were fined. And yeah, it doesn't even like really cross my mind. Like you just kind of have to get up there and report the news. At the end of the day, that is what happened. And
Yeah.
of course it's not fun, but I mean, it's not really fun when you have a negative story about any team.
Right.
Because you eventually, like once you've been working at a place and you kind of get to know the players and you get to know the organizations and the teams and you have a respect for every single one of them, and you kind of start to fall in love with like the player stories just as much as all the different teams. So like even when two teams are playing each other, of course, like, you know, you might have somebody that you want to win, except you respect both teams, you respect the competition, you respect the players, and so you really kind of start following along with that.
So I think the Chargers' plan is to use and target some of those big name receivers that they have. Mike Williams is somebody that they weren't able to utilize last year because he was injured a lot. He was their 2017 first-round draft pick. He's looked phenomenal in camp so far.
Because you do know these players on a more intimate level than we would, what is it about them that maybe we have a misperception of some of the players? Because I think there's this idea that these players are these rich, coddled guys who may not appreciate the fans. I don't think that's the case in most cases. Perhaps it is with some of them. But what do you know about these players that you see up close that we don't?
Well, to get to the NFL level by itself is such an accomplishment. I mean, these players are dedicating their lives to kind of like overcoming everything that they had to do to even get there. You know, we all come from different backgrounds and we all grew up differently, and these players included, and what they've had to overcome to kind of get to where they are is incredible in itself. And most of them are just normal kids that were just drafted out of college. I mean, they're all of a sudden like huge superstars, but they were kind of superstars in college too for the most part.
Yeah.
And they're adjusting and getting to know a new team just like everybody is in life. I don't think that they're really any different.
You described them as kids.
Well, sometimes they are kids. Like, you know, they're 21 years old and they're thrust into like the spotlight, and, you know, they don't know what to do or how to act, and they're trying to like stay focused on football, but there's obviously going to be a lot of distractions. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes we focus too much on the negatives of players rather than like think about all the positive things that they do for a community. A lot of them volunteer, a lot of them give back. I think that the different teams having like team reporters has really shed a light on like these players have amazing personalities. They're funny. They've got hobbies outside of football. They're humans too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of given them a way that people can relate to them and humanize them and get to know their personalities. A perfect example is like Juju Smith-Schuster has a French bulldog. Ooh, I'm obsessed with French bulldogs. I'm obsessed with dogs in general, animals in general. But he's got a French bulldog named Bougie, and getting to like know their different personalities and like their hobbies, and you feel like you're getting to know these players more. I think that when you do that, and JJ Watt, I mean, like look at what he's done for the city of Houston. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
So when you focus on finding the players that have done so many positive things for their teams and organizations and community, I think that stereotype can kind of go away a little bit.
Yeah.
There's always going to be in every aspect of life, there's always going to be, you know, the bad eggs, but for the most part, I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. You brought up J.J. Watt, and I remember watching Hard Knocks, the season that they were, following his team.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed at his work ethic. And I found this with other top athletes, the elite of the elite. Yes, they have some God-given gifts, and they're good. But the really good ones are obsessed with being even better. And he would, as described on the show, after practice, he was the one who was staying behind doing more drills. And you must see that all the time.
Yeah, you know, I think it's funny, you know, Todd Gurley just signed his recent contract. So everybody kind of expected him to be a little on his high horse when he first came out for his first day of training camp, and I was there. And he and Jared Goff actually stayed after practice, and they were the last two of the last people to leave the field and go in after practice is done.
Yeah.
And so it kind of just shows their work ethic and kind of how they do realize that they're in that position of leadership. And so if they can start that trend of still continuing to put that work in. You know, Hard Knocks this year is with the Browns, and you can see Tyrod Taylor's work ethic, and it's just unbelievable. He's in the gym every morning at 5 a.m.
It is incredible.
Hugh Jackson was saying to Baker Mayfield in the first episode, he's like, "Where's your early morning workout?" Right. And Baker was like, "What?
Yeah.
Early morning workout."
Yeah. Let me continue with the Hard Knocks idea. With Hard Knocks, we get this insight into players, and we have sort of a sense of what happens in training camp. When you go to cover training camp, as you have been, is it hard to advance the ball?
Yeah, you know, I think that training camp is tough and preseason is tough because we all want to know about the major storylines. You know, we all want to know what Saquon Barkley's doing, what Baker Mayfield's doing. But I think the bigger stories in training camp and preseason are the players that were undrafted and that are seriously just fighting for a spot on the team.
Yeah.
I always think that is fascinating to see. And I think it's great because they're giving it their all, and they're honestly, literally every play, they're just trying to show that they deserve this spot on the team.
And do you end up rooting for some of these folks?
Oh, yeah.
And if you do that, if you're rooting for them, is that appropriate as a reporter?
Well, I think that you can root for, it's not necessarily rooting for teams or wanting them to win. I can want players to be successful and make great plays. And I think that it's human nature to start rooting for players that are the underdog or somebody that is really like fighting to make it and they're giving it their all.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bad reporting. I mean, I'm not going to only focus on them, but I think it's great when you're able to humanize these players.
Let's talk about this season. Let's go right to the Super Bowl. Who's going to win the Super Bowl this year?
That question is impossible to answer. Let's talk about like the Rams, for example.
Okay.
Last year they went from worst to first. So there's teams like the Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars where 2 years ago people would never put them on the radar to be really good. So I always think that it's great before a season starts to see the different fan bases, how they come together and they have like this inkling of hope. I don't care what team it is, what franchise it is. They could have been the worst last year, but they've got this like inkling of hope that their team can make it. And so isn't the beginning of the season always the best because you've got more fans that are all on board? Whereas once you get to the playoffs, you're like, oh, a lot of them are out of it. I don't think my team is going to go very far. But I think that's what makes sports great. It's the fact that people of different backgrounds, people of different fan bases, like they can all come together and root for a game and put all their differences aside for Sundays and just come together and watch a football game and enjoy it. It's America's pastime. It's a hobby. It's why people use it as like an outlet.
Yeah. You mentioned Jared Goff.
Yeah.
And when he came in to the Rams, he was, as you described earlier, a kid right out of Berkeley, and so much expectation on his shoulders, big contract, and expected to just step into the NFL and perform. And give us a sense of what a young guy like that has to go through to go from a college-level player to the NFL, and why maybe that first year was a little difficult for him.
I think that anybody that's transitioning from college to their first job or from one job to another job, it's going to be a bit of an adjustment and a transition period. And I think that that's normal, that it took him a little bit of time to adjust. I think it's great that he was able to overcome that and not really let it get to him. I think that having a coaching change, I think that Sean McVay has obviously been a coach that has really resonated with, he's an offensive coach, he's an offensive mind, but he's really helped quarterbacks in particular. And so having a coach like him, I think, was really helpful and beneficial for him to kind of have somebody to go to and lean on and learn from. I think that Kirk Cousins, when Sean McVay left the Redskins, there was a story that they said that Kirk had signed a jersey for Sean McVay and said, you know, you've influenced my career more than anyone.
Wow.
So to have a coach in your corner like that can help you grow and develop, I think that it really led to his success.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't we all love a life coach or like somebody there that had been through something like that before and that they could teach you? So I think that that's really helped him.
Well, and as you mentioned, you come out of college, there's an adjustment period, and most people get into a junior role, and you're asking these young people to come into an organization and be the franchise player that year. It's
unrealistic.
It's unrealistic, isn't it? Especially at the speed at which the NFL is
Yeah.
played. That's what you hear players talk about. even at the D1 level for football, it is quick and fast. At the NFL level, it's on hyperdrive.
Look at quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they've had time to grow and develop underneath the starting quarterback. Yeah. And sometimes when these rookie quarterbacks that are going in the first round are drafted, they kind of expect them to just go out there and be the face of the franchise immediately. But I think that we're seeing a little bit less and less of that, because if you look at Baker Mayfield, he's definitely going to be starting behind Tyrod Taylor. And so a lot of these coaches and teams have kind of figured out, well, maybe we should give them a little bit of time to develop and adjust and learn the playbook and properly integrate them into the system, rather than letting them get eaten alive by the fans, the media, why isn't he as good as he was expected to be?
And the playbook,
yeah,
right? I mean, just
it's got to be a shock to like your confidence. I mean,
yeah,
I know I read a comment on social media, let alone being on national television playing a not so great game, but it's not always their fault.
They had one of the top passing offenses last year, and they are planning to use Virgil Green in that tight end role.
Let's talk about the Chargers.
Yeah, that's another really exciting team. Let's just hope they don't go through any more injuries. That poor team. I was actually at training camp for a couple of days, and then I had a day off, and that was the day that Bosa had gotten injured. And when I saw the news, I was like heartbroken. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this poor team, this poor franchise. But they have a really good team this year. Their 2017 first-round draft pick, who had been injured all of last year, is really coming into his own, Mike Williams. He and Phillip Rivers have been connecting, so I feel like even though they did lose Hunter Henry, their tight end, I feel like they're going to be able to cope with it just because of how strong their receiving core is. They're an exciting team to have here in LA.
Are they a contender?
I think so.
And the Rams are contenders for sure.
Absolutely. Could you imagine if we had, like, in 2000, what year is the stadium opening?
2020, 21, I'm not really sure.
What if we had like a Rams Chargers Super Bowl? How crazy would that be?
What about our adopted team or our other team, the Raiders?
Are they technically our adopted team?
Well, they used to be one of our teams. We have a huge Raiders fan base.
Yeah.
Here.
I think they're contenders.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think they need to work on some
Well, I guess
things,
everybody's a contender at
right now,
before
week
game
one.
one.
Nobody knows anything. I wouldn't have said the Jaguars last year.
What's next for you, and where do you want to go with your career? That's
the $1 million question. People always ask you, like, where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? I think that right now for me, I mean, if I asked myself 5 years ago, where would I be now? I would never have guessed that I would be living in Los Angeles, working for like NFL Network, doing like my dream job. So I think that kind of learning, especially for me, learning to like enjoy the moment and enjoy the journey and enjoy the process is something that I really need to focus more on, rather than always, wondering what my next thing is going to be, because I'm in a great spot and I want to continue to grow and get better, and I guess just see where that takes me, but not always be so anxious for the next thing and always looking for the next thing, rather than enjoying where you kind of are and like where you're at in the process and journey.
Yeah.
So who knows?
For someone in your profession, is it ESPN? Is it, Monday Night Football? Is it
Yeah, I mean, I think you always want to have, like a bigger role and to be doing more. I don't have like a specific job, but I would love to be doing like hosting either a daily show or doing a pregame show before the big games. I think I would love doing that.
As we get closer to opening day in the NFL, it must be exciting for someone who covers it, but at the same time, we were talking earlier, it's sort of a blackout period for you.
It is, but it's funny, when you first get off of this blackout period, you think you're going to be so excited, but you're kind of like shocked, and you're like, wait, after one day, you're like, what am I supposed to do with my time?
Explain the blackout period that you were explaining to me. What does that mean for you?
Once the season starts, you just have blackout dates. Like, you just kind of know that those are the dates that you can't really request off, or you also want to be there, though. It's not even like, oh, shucks, I've got to go into work. Like, why wouldn't you want to be there? Like, you're talking about your passion, like your hobby. And so I think that it's a mix of like, once it kind of goes from like 0 to 100 though. So I think that it is a lot. And like I was saying, I was like, yes, I am off most Sundays, but I don't really know if that technically means I'm off, because I'm still like sitting in front of my computer, engaging in conversation on like social media and watching every game and reading my research notes. Like, it's like Christmas morning. I'm telling you, when we get our research notes on like Monday morning, our research staff there is absolutely incredible. And they give us like 100 pages of like research notes for a wrap up of last week's game and then matchups for this upcoming week. And I love them. I mean, I'm like running down there to go grab them with my highlighter, like digging through them. So it's always fun to kind of provide fans with those research, like little nuggets on game day. Like when you've got two big quarterbacks going up against each other or whatever it is. Yeah. There's always fun, cool storylines behind the players and behind the like research, like the stats of how many times this team has won versus this team, like what it's like to be at home versus away. And there's always really cool stuff. Yeah. So I can give our research staff credit for that.
Well, we give you credit for working hard and achieving a lot at such a young age. Taylor, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us tonight. If you'd like to hear the entire conversation with the NFL Network's Taylor Bisciotti, check out the Frank Buckley Interviews podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including on Google Play and iTunes and the KTLA5 News app. Thanks for the feedback on social media. If you'd like to join the conversation, tag me at Frank Buckley TV on Twitter and Instagram, or drop a comment on the Frank Buckley Facebook page. If you'd like to share this TV show with friends around the world, check us out on YouTube. Just search for Frank Buckley Interviews. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.